everybody. It's been a while. Yes, last time I think I gave an update that I was working with Lou Rakowski, where I went basically to New Hampshire and shot something to help. It was basically for his survival promo. And I guess the shoot went well because I'm going to be flying out to New Hampshire again this weekend to help him out again. And look, the reason why my channel slowed down, I just stopped posting the last couple of weeks. I mean, one of them is I was trying to get a lot of my gear in order. Like I have a brand new camera that obviously can shoot in low light. But honestly, I just kind of got burned out from YouTube. And let me read the email, and this will kind of explain it all. This is by YouTube, by the way. Hi, Second Earth. Thank you for applying to the YouTube Partner Program. To evaluate your application, our team carefully reviewed your channel, Second Earth. Unfortunately, we found that your application does not meet our YouTube Partner Program policies, so we cannot approve your channel for monetization at this time. And just to give a little backdrop as to what occurred, is that in my channel, I had gotten a little bit political because I was sick and tired of all the shenanigans, all the corruption that was happening with the Democratic Party. Because I honestly, I consider myself a liberal. Like a lot of the ideas and policies and thoughts that I have and philosophies are more left-leaning. But, you know, part of being liberal is you don't stand for censorship. You don't stand for corruption. And unfortunately, the whole Democratic establishment got so screwed up that I started posting these very independent videos kind of pointing out the different aspects of corruption, where it was happening. And in a way, I got a little bit political. So in reapplying for monetization with YouTube, I went ahead and I went to my channel and I literally annotated like 300, 400 videos. And I realized that 20% of my videos, only 20% were political. So why would I destroy the rest of my channel, the other 80%, just because of these political videos that are not even relevant anymore? So I decided to just delete anything that was political and just keep the heart of the channel, the UFO, the mystery, all that cool stuff that we have had a good track record with. And then I reapplied. In the very bottom, they say, if you want to reapply, you should start by going to the monetization page to read more about the policy your channel violated. And they claim that my channel provided harmful information. It's that ambiguous term. Then review your videos against our YouTube Partner Program policy and our community guidelines. The next step is to edit or delete any videos that violate our policies. So I already deleted every single political video, and they're still asking me to delete other videos, which I don't even know what they are. So I have to just guess what videos to delete. So this was very disheartening. I mean, I did leave a few videos about Jeffrey Epstein. I mean, are they upset that I mentioned Jeffrey Epstein back in 2016, and then in 2017, ABC was shelving that story while countless women were being harmed? Are they upset that I warned about this guy even before Bill Gates was meeting with him? So, I don't know. I honestly, I don't even know what to do right anymore. I just got really burned out, and it was just, you know, I had to take a break for myself. So today I want to talk about this brand new show. It's a J.J. Abrams show. Now, if you don't know who J.J. Abrams is, he's a big Hollywood director. I think he directed Star Trek, or at least some of the Star Trek movies. J.J. Abrams has a new show on Showtime called UFO. I went ahead and I watched the show, and I have to say, it's probably the best show I've ever seen on UFOs. But having said that, a lot of the information that they gave, it almost felt like a truncated version of this channel. And so I want to kind of summarize the topics that they went over and ask the audience, have you guys seen the show? And please comment, give me your thoughts about what you think the show was like. So the show started with Apollo 17 astronauts, and astronauts is one of the topics that we've been talking about for so long, because there are actually a lot of credible astronauts, Edgar Mitchell, Dr. Brian O'Leary, Gordon Cooper, some would even say Buzz Aldrin, who have essentially admitted to the presence of UFOs. And since they are aviation experts, they're some of the most trained government personnel that we have, I thought that their word was unusually weighted. It was something that was very important to take note when these individuals are actually talking about UFOs being real. So that was kind of a cool intro that they had. Then what kind of surprised me is one of the main narrators that they used was Leslie Kean. Now, Leslie Kean was the writer who wrote an article on Huffington Post about Christopher Mellon, which we highlighted in our second episode. So out of 300 videos, our second episode was literally highlighting the article from Leslie Kean and who Christopher Mellon was. He eventually became one of the 4 members to the STARS Academy, so I thought that was kind of cool. They talked about Fife Symington, and Fife Symington is another individual, the former governor of Arizona, who went on CNN and kind of ridiculed all these people with his aide dressed up as an alien.
He held a news conference after the Phoenix lights to announce the mystery had been solved.
And now I'll ask Officer Stein and his colleagues to escort the accused into the room so that we may all look upon the guilty party. Don't get him too close to me, please.
In the alien costume, the governor's chief of staff.
Now, this just goes to show that you guys are entirely too serious.
Well, he's a really interesting character because not only did he ridicule the UFO community, he was also a governor, he was also part of the U.S. Air Force, and in time, I think it was almost like 10 years later, he admitted that it was all bullshit. His theatrics was bullshit, is what I'm saying. So Fife Symington was saying that he actually did see something huge during the 1997 Phoenix Lights incident, and that he said, I think, that the thing was like the size of a football field. That's how incredible it was. You know, it was this giant, I mean, a lot of people describe this giant, silent, triangular UFO that just hovered past the Phoenix area. And then they talked about how there were UFOs that were spotted in July 1952 over the Capitol. And they talked about how a scientific panel was created to investigate this, which eventually became Project Blue Book with J. Allen Hynek. And this is also something that we talked extensively about, especially recently. I've been talking about the Robertson's panel, and they were talking about the ridiculous explanations like the swamp gas theory and all those things. But the one thing that they did not mention was the file that I discovered from the CIA website that actually proves that the CIA was in it. So they kind of hint that, oh, well, the government is this big, powerful thing, and they're just trying to find any explanation. But no, it was more than that. The government knew what they were dealing with. The CIA knew what it was dealing with. It created a false panel, the Robertson's panel. Essentially, it was sponsored by the CIA. And then when the Air Force was asking for information regarding what had happened during these cases, because they were creating the Condon Report in 1968, though the document actually was in 1964, so it was 4 years before they actually created the scientific investigation on UFOs, well, the CIA said, nope, we're not giving you information. And so not was the Air Force not privy to the information, not only was this panel a false panel, I actually have the document that proves this. And this is part of the reason why I've been talking about that document so much, because I do think it's a huge linchpin. It's a smoking gun to a very, very important incident in terms of our history and how we reacted to the presence of UFOs. So the fact that this awesome docuseries, I should call, doesn't even mention that, yeah, it was slightly disappointing, but what am I expecting? That somebody had watched this episode and knew of that document and just happened to give to the producers of Showtime? Then they talked about angels and the idea how the history of religion could, in a way, be entrenched with UFOs. Essentially, these things that came from the sky that were brightly lit, you know, there's a lot of possible connections that could indicate that whatever they were seeing back then was actually UFOs, but was interpreted in a more religious manner. Now, one thing that they did mention that I actually didn't know about, they talked about how Fife Symington was implicated in these bank fraud charges, which apparently some nefarious force was utilizing this to essentially keep them shut about what was happening with the UFOs in Phoenix. So it was kind of like it was a form of blackmail, essentially. And they really didn't paint Fife Symington in a nice picture. They really made him seem like this horrible figure who was completely against the UFOs, who did nothing but promote ridicule. You know, I think like people like Neil deGrasse Tyson is more guilty of creating this type of ridicule, because Fife Symington actually told the truth in the end.
Unquestionably, it was a UFO, which means unidentified flying object.
Right. Doesn't mean we're being visited.
Well, it's nothing like anything I've ever seen.
And you're an Air Force guy.
Yeah, and a pilot.
How big?
bigger than anything I've ever seen in the sky.
Like an aircraft carrier in the sky?
Yeah. Something like that, yeah. And it was hard to define because of the light.
And I think that's very important to note. Then they talked about the Chicago O'Hare incident. This is something that we also talked about. I was telling the audience that the story that was written in the Chicago Tribune was the most clicked story in the history of that website, the publication. And for some reason, the incident was kind of washed away, you know. Once again, you had these aviation experts that were witnessing this from, I believe it was American Airlines. And then, of course, they ended with the Tic Tac UFO. So it was cool, man. It was a really well done documentary. Like I said, it's a lot of information that we had talked about in this channel. There have been some people who have been very skeptical of individuals like Luis Elizondo. And let me tell you something. I can't say who it is, okay? But when I went to New Hampshire to work with Luke, well, they had a ton of military individuals there. And let's just say that I met somebody who was part of the military who had served or knew Luis Elizondo before he was even working at the Pentagon, and was kind of confirming that this guy is legit. That this guy is not only a truthful, incredible person, but he's just a really good person in general. And they were actually surprised that he eventually came forth with this information. Not because they didn't believe the information, but just because of the character of the man. They didn't think that it was within him to take these secrets and eventually unveil. I mean, he's very careful about how he does so. But for all the individuals who question people like Luis Elizondo, secure team, yeah, man, I think it's legit. I'll just put it that way. Yeah, talking about secure team, I had a quick little discourse with Jeremy Corbell over email, talking about how Tyler from Secure Team, I don't know why he keeps doing this, but he was talking some major shit about Jeremy and his entire group, even though Jeremy was the one who provided him the interview for Bob Lazar. So we're kind of joking about that. It's just, I don't know. I don't understand. Anyways, I know there's a lot of Secure Team fans here, so I don't want to get too deep in this. So I went through the emails. There were a ton of emails. A lot of people were giving me awesome UFO footage, but nobody gave me their explicit permission except for this one email. So if you do have UFO footage that you want to send to this channel, just let me know on the email whether I have permission to share the subject matter or not. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share this one UFO picture. It was a screen capture from the International Space Station. Not only did the person give me consent to share this, but it's also part of public domain since it originally came from NASA. And so yeah, just take a look at these images real quick. Wow, that's crazy. These cigar-shaped UFOs are so interesting for a number of reasons. One of them, it's not something that you would just make up. Like, who would make up that a flying vehicle from some highly technological species from God knows some other star, that they would have a craft that looks like a cigar, like Fidel Castro could smoke that thing? Like, that's crazy, man. That it just doesn't even make sense. And that to me makes it seem more credible. in a sense that it's so wild, it's so unexpected, but also that it's been verified so many times. And you know who else talked about a cigar-shaped UFO? Somebody who got absolutely screwed by the US government, somebody from Britain who they were trying to extradite this guy, trying to basically take him to the United States and get him locked up for a long time. Well, it was the hacker, Gary McKinnon. If I remember correctly, Gary McKinnon, the hacker who actually hacked into the NASA site, and what he described was seeing cigar-shaped UFOs from satellite images over Earth. I kid you not. So when this viewer, he claims that for about 5 seconds he was able to see this thing, and he was surprised that nobody else picked up on it, but he took some screen captures of the International Space Station footage. So when he says that he saw this cigar-shaped UFO and he actually has the images to showcase that, well, I'm like, bro, I believe you. I think that's definitely possible given the history of cigar-shaped UFOs, given the fact that Gary McKinnon, the hacker, he had autism. People who have autism have an unusually difficult time lying. So the guy who basically got himself in a ton of trouble, could have been sentenced to decades in jail in the United States, he actually was talking about cigar-shaped UFOs over Earth. This is what this viewer picked up on. I think it's very cool. Anyway, so I'm going to leave the episode at that. Like I said, I have a ton of UFO footage that I want to show, but I need the audience's permission. So if you do have UFO footage, if you have anything that you want to share, give me an email. Just tell me that I have your permission on the email. Thank you so much for following me. I will be keeping this channel going. I'm actually going to start posting a lot more videos once I come back from New Hampshire this weekend. And yeah, I was burned out for a month, but I think it's time to get back on track. Thank you so much for listening. This is Felipe speaking, signing out.